out at war and I'm a soldier. Now you too will taste the reality of this situation.
These homegrown terrorists may prove to be as dangerous as groups like Al-Qaeda, if not more so.
The whole war in Iraq has been ideally shaped for Osama bin Laden mobilizing Muslims against the West.
Bin Laden saw Mugnier as sort of a role model.
Mugnier is head and shoulders above any other terrorist in the world.
Russell Square.
Terror. Convulsions of violence across the globe. The architects of these acts, Al-Qaeda. 5 years ago, on September 11th, the world came to know the shadowy terror network Al-Qaeda and its leader, Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden and his foot soldiers became the most wanted men on earth. In the months after the attacks, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan and routed Al-Qaeda from its training camps. Many of the terrorists were killed, but bin Laden, cornered in the mountains of Tora Bora, escaped to lead his now fractured but still fanatical band of killers.
Al-Qaeda, the organization, has definitely been impaired post 9/11. 75% of their leadership has been captured or killed or is on the run, but the organization has proved very resilient because it's not a typical criminal organization. They're motivated by an ideology where they really believe that they're doing God's work on earth.
The war on terrorism has significantly damaged Al-Qaeda's ability to attack the United States. It doesn't mean that it's eliminated. Bin Laden is continuously trying to recruit individuals to conduct attacks against the United States and its allies.
Al-Qaeda is a potent ideological force, a virus that has infected thousands of Muslims around the world. And though wounded, it remains an operational force as well.
Bin Ladenism is a negative way of looking at the world. It's against a lot of things, but not really for anything very positive. It's against U.S. presence in the Middle East. And then he's adding this component of violence against Jews, against Westerners, against Americans. And that was kind of his innovation.
An ideology that is spreading around the world.
One of the critical reasons that we've seen a spread of this bin Laden ideology is communications technology.
أما أنتم أيها المستضعفون المظلومون في العالم.
When Al-Qaeda releases a tape, hundreds of millions of people read it or see it or hear about it within 24 hours.
Messages that inspired splinter groups that trained at the camps in Afghanistan.
Those training camps were utilized by a number of terrorist organizations. Somewhere between 15 and 20,000 individuals may have gone through the terrorist training camps.
Experts say that terrorists are today forming groups of their own, inspired by Al-Qaeda, but carrying out their own plans.
Someone like bin Laden or Zawahiri, who essentially are saying, borders matter less. We can build an organization with thousands of people spread across 24 countries. We can essentially create havens wherever like-minded people gather.
In the past 5 years, there have been attacks in Bali, Madrid, London, and suicide bombings in Afghanistan.
This is the worst year for terrorist attacks since numbers have been capped. 2005 was the worst year. 2006 maybe even worse.
In London this summer, a terror plot involving transatlantic airlines bore the imprint of Al-Qaeda and its leader bin Laden. But the trail to bin Laden's whereabouts remains cold. Nearly 5 years after 9/11, he continues to elude his hunters. U.S. intelligence points to Pakistan, a remote mountainous region on the Afghanistan border.
If you were Osama bin Laden sitting and assessing where we are around the 5th anniversary of 9/11, I think he'd be saying, well, it's great I'm in Pakistan. I've got all these Kashmiri militants who are helping me. I've got the Taliban who are helping me. We took a huge hit after 9/11, but we're back in business.
And helping to fuel that business is the Iraq War.
The war in Iraq, many believe in the extremist world that the United States is an invader and that they have a responsibility to fight jihad against the United States. So I think much of the jihadist activity that we've seen has been focused in Iraq. When that war ends, will they then focus domestically, or will they focus additional attention on U.S. interest abroad in other places outside of Iraq?
Coming up, a country on the front line, Britain coping with its own homegrown terror.
We are at war and I'm a soldier.
At a community centre in East London earlier this summer, a group of young Muslim men are watching a video of Osama bin Laden, showing their support and venting their anger. The accents are English, the sentiments are frightening.
Muslims in this country are living under siege, and Muslims outside this country are under siege.
Abu Retief and others have organised this meeting just before the anniversary of last summer's London subway bombings. But their anger is not directed against the 4 young British Muslims who killed 52 people with their suicide attacks.
Why did this happen? What were the causes behind it?
Instead, they blame the governments and the citizens of Britain and the United States for the war in Iraq and what they see as a war against Muslims around the world.
The British public are responsible and are to blame for what happened on the 7th of July because they voted for that government.
2 months after this meeting in the same neighbourhood, British police conducted the biggest anti-terror raid since the bombings last summer. They arrested young Britons, Muslim and mostly Pakistani descent, and said they had thwarted a plot that would have dwarfed the subway bombings.
This was intended to be mass murder on an unimaginable scale.
But what is all too imaginable is that young British Muslims are turning against the country of their birth. There is a culture of extremism here now, consumed with the ideas and actions of Al-Qaeda. Listen to the words of subway bomber Mohammed Sadiq Khan to the British public in the so-called Martyrs video released by Al-Qaeda.
We are at war and I'm a soldier. Now you too will taste the reality of this situation.
To his colleagues and parents at Hillside Primary School in Leeds, where he was a teaching assistant, Khan was a trusted figure who worked closely with disabled children. While the Muslim community is on average poorer than the rest of British society, Khan and fellow conspirator Shahzad Tanweer led middle-class lives, hardly deprived. The children of successful immigrant families, they went to university, drove nice cars, and appeared to fit in. But rejecting a society they felt had never accepted them, they chose sides. They chose terror in the name of Islam.
Your democratically elected governments continuously perpetuate atrocities against my people all over the world, and your support of them makes you directly responsible, just as I am directly responsible for protecting and avenging my Muslim brothers and sisters.
The idea of homegrown terrorists sent a chill up this country's collective spine. British Muslims had carried out a suicide bombing in Israel in 2003, but never at home. The truth turned out to be even more complicated. Homegrown, yes, but Khan and Tanweer had travelled to Pakistan, intending to become holy warriors, sources say. There, Al-Qaeda leaders gave them explosives training and sent them back to the UK, but not before having them record their last wills and testaments.
Thousands like me have forsaken everything for what we believe. Our drive and motivation doesn't come from tangible commodities that this world has to offer.
But are there thousands of Mohammed Sadiq Khans ready to die? Britain's security service, MI5, is believed to be tracking some 1,200 people, 24 cells. And one British Home Office report from 2004